Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, hey, hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. It's we're doing episode 3 of The Last of Us. Long time.
Oh, you took that punchline right out of my. That's all right. It's long time.
I've
Yeah.
been doing a bad job of getting the episode names right, so I wanted to just power through and get it right before the joke started.
Yeah, and I think you did everyone a service because you saved me from that lame joke.
Fair enough. There we
or
go.
Pun.
Which... So I feel like before the season even premiered, I kept seeing that like this was the one. This was the big episode. And I called that on last episode when we were recording, saying that this was going to be the one that everyone cried at. Do you feel like this episode lived up to the hype, or?
Yeah, I'm glad you actually made that call, and I was gonna acknowledge the fact that you were right on the money because this was, wow, what an episode, like, of anything ever. Like, just what great storytelling. There's so much depth in this, and I can't wait to get into it.
I did not take any notes, just letting you know ahead of time.
Freestyle.
I'm gonna try and do this in order, but yeah, it was a very interesting. So this officially incorporated basically all stuff that I didn't know because I hadn't gotten past a certain point in the game. So it was all new to me. It was very interesting. But I guess we should start at the beginning, which is Joel doing like some form of acknowledgement of passing and some kind of funeral type thing, stacking the rocks as he tries to wash off his wound and make it feel better at the very least. And obviously at this point there's still tension between Joel and Ellie because they're not talking. They're giving each other dirty looks, but they're not talking to each other. And overall, I did like that Ellie pushed it and was like, "Well, we're gonna have to talk." So like, I'm gonna just keep. I'll try. I'll try this and try and get us talking. But, yeah, basically, Joel tries to be like, "Oh, I don't want to hear an apology," and I like that she's like, "I'm not gonna give you like that wasn't what I was going to do." I don't think that's what she truly believes, but I do like that she stood up for herself and was like, "This isn't my fault, so don't go expecting an apology from me."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was willing to offer some level of comfort to him, but I mean, he just like really guessed wrong with where she was going to go with that, right? And it was just one of those things where he was just like, I don't know if that was more to say about his just, oh, any potential for there to be any warmth towards this, like I'm gonna try to cut it off, or if it's just him just reacting as if like, oh yeah, like I'm starting to see the similarities between you and Sarah, all those kind of things, and reacting as if Sarah would have said those kind of things. It's hard to tell, but I really like the fact that she was like, I wasn't gonna say that whatsoever.
No. I think it's more, as this episode really nails home, Joel is aware of his role as the protector, so I think it's more, I did a bad job protecting Tess. I certainly didn't protect Sarah, and I'm not really up for another protector role, but also like I still think there is a bit of feeling sore about losing Tess, and I think for 100% he gets over it, but he blames Ellie for this. So like I think it's more just that anger mixed with ultimately knowing he's going to have to be her protector and not really wanting to get right into that right away.
Yeah, he's pushing back. There's reluctancy on that and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But you're right. He has ultimately accepted the role. Like the moment he grabbed her and ran from Tess, like in the last episode, was the moment he accepted that role reluctantly, like you point out,
Yeah,
though.
because
But
I think he knew that was
yeah,
coming before
Mhm.
that moment. But for sure, I believe that you're right, that him grabbing her and running was him being like, it's happening now. This is it now. Before I could try and put it off, but it's happening now. I'm now accepting responsibility for protecting her.
Yeah, because he was definitely taking the backseat role.
Yeah.
Obviously in episode 2 with like, oh, Tess, you're gonna be like doing this. You're gonna be point person. All right, cool. I could just watch our 6. So he's just like, this episode is, yeah, for sure him leaning into that, but figuring out what that means for him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think the time in between protector jobs wasn't enough for him.
No, regardless of the time, it was his lack of processing or his refusal to process, or he had other
Which
things.
comes
But
with
it's,
time.
it's
Would you
yeah,
agree?
which comes with time for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. In this test department and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just doesn't have the ability. He just had, like, you're right, a moment to wash his hands alone and stack the stones, which I thought was nice for him to do that for the purity of it. And yeah, the purity of Tess's memory and all that kind of stuff to the best of his ability.
So they decide they're gonna break their silence and they're talking.
Yep.
And Joel kind of gives the definitive answer of, yeah, this happened because of Flower, which we saw in the second episode, but this is like someone who's lived through it is like confirming it was because of the spread of this. It was just something that was in everything everywhere, so that's how it spread so quickly. And so there's that confirmation. They see that's where they see the plane, right? And like all the people that fell out of the plane, basically. Yeah,
it's basically around that point, because like she's enamored by it all, right? It's like, that used to fly in the air, and
or
all this
were they
kind
in
of
the
stuff.
gas station first? Now I can't remember.
It might be irrelevant in regards to that
irrelevant.
timing.
I just know that something big happens in the gas station, and I'm pretty sure
Of course
the plane thing happens right before they cut to Bill. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't skip over what happens at the gas station. So whatever order it happens in, the gas station happens, which is, I think, showing. It's interesting. I've seen a bunch of people's takes on what's happening with. She goes in there, she gets tampons, but more importantly, she sees an infected person down there. And I can't remember what point they're at. Like, it's like Runner or something like that. Either way, they're infected.
So this is the Stalker level. This is past Runner, and it's like the second before Clicker.
Because they have the half Clicker face.
Yeah, you can start to see, because the Runners, the distinct thing about them is that there's no facial kind of like fungal projections yet, and these are just like small. But yeah, it's a Stalker at this point.
Okay, so she sees a Stalker pinned down there, and it didn't occur to me the way she was playing it, but I can't rule it out, that there is some element of her exacting some kind of revenge on this thing by the way she toys with it and kills it. I mean, that makes the most sense. I'm not saying that's a wild thing. For me, the way she played it, it just felt so like, I'm really gonna fuck with this thing, the way she enjoyed watching
Joel beat that
guy. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1. I'm just saying, like, there was a similar look to her while she was effectively torturing this infected thing. Obviously, it's beyond being a person at this point. It's a stalker. She's torturing it, but it felt like a similar zone that she was in, that when she was looking at Joel beat the guy to death.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's how would best describe it, right? Because it's not like a disassociation. She's fully there. She's fully like studying it and like enamored by it, right? It's just one of those things where it's like a train crash, like you can't look away, but she's actually getting more enjoyment from it than anything else. At least that's what I'm reading from it. And in this scene, I can't really tell. Like, I really was looking forward to your take on it, because to me, my thought is I had multiple thoughts about why she did that. I'm like, okay, is this like your way of figuring out, like, okay, yeah, you're gonna have to defend yourself, so you might as well get the idea of a kill under your belt, right? Or is this like the sadistic kid that like tortures an animal that's helpless and all that kind of stuff? But of course, we don't look at it like that because it's a zombie creature thing. Or is it just like her getting the revenge angle? Like all three of those thoughts came to my mind of like, okay, screw you guys for getting tests, you know what I mean? Or like screw you for ruining my life, or you know, all those kind of things.
I think of your options, I feel like I would tweak the thing of sadistic kid who tortures animals, because it's not quite the same thing. In both cases where she's actively or looks actively pleased with the violence that's happening, whether she's committing it or someone else, it's against someone who means her harm. Like it isn't a harmless animal in that case. It is someone or a being that is actively trying to harm. Like if that stalker got out, that wouldn't have been like, the stalker doesn't know that she's immune, right? Like it would have been trying to get her. That wasn't like a stalker that was like, please help me. I think I think there's still something left of me here. And then she was like, ha ha ha, now's my chance. So I think my tweak to that would be that like it's clearly showing some kind of sadistic side. And I think if anything, it's highlighting why she goes well with Joel. Or sorry, we already know that the kind of the thesis statement is that they are going to be happy together, but they're not necessarily good for each other because they might bring out those bad things in each other. But I think that's more what that was trying to do. Other than just a blanket, oh yeah, she's just a violent kid. Like I think it's more, everyone is having to deal with making choices like this, and she is someone that will choose the violence. She's not going to choose running away. She's gonna choose the violent option the same way Joel will.
And also the other side, I looked at that too. I'm like, that was probably the most practical option there, because I mean, like, yeah, it's pinned, yeah, it's all that kind of stuff, but it's just like, why would you just leave it alive at that point as a threat for, you know, whatever, in the sense where it's like, okay, you learned about the underground thing, so if you killed it, maybe it will stop the spread growing out and making like a proximity thing, because it is Joel's hiding place for stuff, right? That's a place he knows very, very well and has come back there multiple times, so it's likely he's going to do it again, so eliminate any future threat from growing. I just looked at it as that very practical, but looking deeper, I'm like, yeah, what does it mean for her? And how
I think that's part of it. She made, as I said, like everyone has to make these choices, right? Like that's a practical choice. It's just she didn't just go for the kill. She was kind of cutting at it and poking at it. So I think it was showing that like she will choose the violent option of like, even in a world where that is the right choice, as you said, like why leave that to grow and kind of solidify some kind of hold there and create more of the network, why, like, if, especially since she knows that Joel comes back here, like she doesn't share what she did with him either, but it is kind of just like, I feel like the importance of her not sharing is to show that it is solely her decision. This isn't something she's doing to show that she's as brave as Joel or anything like that. Like this is like, no, like this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm choosing to deal with this situation.
Yeah, that's purely for her. It was there was no like, hey, I want validation for this or whatever. It was just purely for her. The one thought I had about like her cutting open the forehead before the stab was the idea of like that line of dialogue. I don't know if it was last episode or like the episode before. Does it get hard killing them knowing that they were once people, right? And to me, what part of that was just like, and this was always my thought from episode 2 when the scientist starts doing the dissection of the flesh on the leg from the bite, is like, is she connecting with it from the perspective of, oh, you're not bleeding, you're not, like, you know, that kind of aspect of, oh, if I cut you, if you cut me, do I not bleed? And the idea of like, oh, you're literally not bleeding, you're literally a monster, something else. I don't know if that's factored into it, of whether or not she's trying to assess the humanity behind it.
Could be an option. I thought I saw blood, but it could be.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing blood. I just remember seeing that like fungal thing that kind of was there, and because I think that like is just such a cool VFX moment. Like it just, the VFX team and the makeup team on this, good job, like all around. for sure.
I think she might be trying to assess the humanity of the theme. That is something I definitely didn't consider, but is definitely an option there.
It's definitely a very, like, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I'm like, aside from the little Mortal Kombat thing to show like, oh yeah, she genuinely is still just a kid and like very excited, all these kind of things, but has this extreme moment at the bottom of it too. It was just like, okay, is that her way of being like, okay, childhood over kind of deal, like first kill, we got to survive? I don't know, but it could be a lot of things. It's just that one scene is very, very extreme in both those angles.
I believe she thinks her childhood ended whenever whatever happened with Riley. I think
yes,
I'm pretty sure she thought that was the end of her childhood, but
that's probably true.
Everyone in this episode who's a main character gets reminded of something from when times weren't shitty in this, and that was her thing.
Yeah,
she got the Mortal Kombat thing.
Good call on that. Yeah.
So yeah, again, I don't remember the way this goes, but essentially we move to a few days after the initial breakout, and we see Bill seeing people get loaded up and essentially get what I would assume he always wanted, which is being able to be alone and not have to deal with anybody. And there's a brief bit of him having a good time joyriding, going to Home Depot, getting what he needs, being able to beat the power going out and being like, oh, that took longer than I thought. Like, and you're just, and it's weird because he's got like all the marker, like I think he has like a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and I was like, I mean, yeah, like I would not be friends with him in real, like if he was a real person.
Oh yeah,
Dylan and I would not have the same politics.
No, but Bill is very interested
of making you feel for him. But yeah, before, I mean, not during this segment, I don't know,
but yeah, like it very clearly, like Bill would not get along with either one of us. But also at the same time, I don't think Bill would get along with very many people. And
I'm speaking specifically to his politics, not just that he's like a hermit. I'm saying specifically.
Oh no, I understand. I just feel like his politics wouldn't resonate with a lot of people either. Like it was just.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised.
I think there would be, but they wouldn't. Their first instinct isn't like, okay, let's form a community of loners. Is what I'm saying.
Specifically
like
talking about his racist political views. This has nothing to do with him being a loner.
No, I completely agree about the racist political stuff for sure. But it's further less people agreeing with him. But would not like him in real life.
So yeah, he's built up a fortress basically on his block. So you see like one instance of an infected being on his property hitting a tripwire, being shot in the head.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, he's got this figured out.
Yeah. And I thought that was a cool moment, a nod to the game, because like that's how you first get introduced to Bill too, is like a walker, like a runner starts running at you, and then the exact same setup, and then Joel goes like, oh, that's one of Bill's traps and all that kind of stuff. Told you to be careful. So it's a nice little moment that he has there.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then you see him, I feel like you see him making meals and stuff, and it's obviously more elevated than what you would expect, just like someone who's just trying to survive to make. I think that's an important detail. And then
one that I will come back to later for sure.
Then he finds Frank in the hole, and I basically from this point on enjoy all the different details that they add to this and all the different complexities, so that essentially they become a couple. And I really like everything leading up to them feeling each other out to see if it's even appropriate to make so like obviously Frank comments on like, whoa, like you knew to pair a rabbit with a Beaujolais, and he's just like, I know, I don't seem the type, and he's like, you do. And then when he's looking through his sheet music and he's like, this isn't you, and then he sees the Linda Ron side, he's like, this is you. I thought that was such a nice way of showing that Frank sees him, all while still having me, as again, because I don't know the game, and I know that if you've played the game, there's a difference because you don't really see them as lovers until after the fact that they were lovers, but
Yeah.
that you only ever see them fighting, so it already would be different. And I
Correct.
guess people who've played the game would have the same feeling as me of like, I mean, this could go wrong at any moment. Like this
Mhm.
this is like they could start fighting at any given time. And
Mhm.
the way they framed everything and just they're feeling each other out. But I would always think like anytime Frank said something like, but like, is he trying to screw him over? Like, I genuinely don't know if he's trying to screw him
Mm.
over. Is he gonna say something that makes Bill be like, you went too far, you took it too far, I'm gonna kill you for that or something. I genuinely did not know where it was gonna go for that first bit, but I did love all the like subtle ways they felt each other. I mentioned a bunch of obvious ways, but I'm like, I felt like there was still a bunch of subtle like glances and just ways
Mhm.
they talked about what they were talking about to get to the core of the kiss that they end up sharing after
Mhm.
singing Linda Ronstadt to each other.
Mhm. Mhm. There's so many small things that Frank did, just behaviorally, verbally, all that kind of stuff. And you're right to point it out because, like, even when he was in the hole, that was like the first one of the first pieces of dialogue. He was like, Bill goes like, "Are you armed?" And then there's that long
Mm-hmm.
pause, and he says no, and immediately he's like, "I don't know why I took that long pause. I don't know what." Like he immediately
Well,
said it right away.
he was asked why'd you take so long, and he's like, I was thinking of a lie, but I couldn't think of one,
Right.
which pays off almost immediately because later on
Yes.
he's like, I promise I'm not going to tell anyone, and you already know I'm shit at lying. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm telling the truth right now because I couldn't even think of a lie to save my life earlier. Like,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. No, I forgot that little part, but he like the way he confesses and all that kind of stuff, and just builds that trust over and over and over with him. It really, really is good. And it's the idea of like that small thing where it's like, you better get moving. Like, isn't an Arby's. And he's like, if everyone comes around here and gets a sandwich, and you're like, this isn't Arby's. It's like, Arby's wasn't free. It was a restaurant.
mm-hmm.
Just like that alone was like, okay, now we're in the house. It was hilarious to me. I'm like, okay, you disarmed him mentally speaking, because this is a guy, Bill, that is very fortified in every aspect, right? Even his
Mm-hmm.
defenses, and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that he was able to kind of like disarm him with his words, it made him trust a little bit for whatever that was. It wasn't perceived as a threatening attack. It was good.
I do know that, again, listening to the creators, that wasn't
Mhm.
what disarmed him. It was just his look. He genuinely just thought like, oh, this is a
Of
hot guy
course.
in my hole.
Of course.
And
Well,
that
yes, 100%. But I'm like, you still have to build that trust,
Well,
being
I'm
like,
just
okay,
saying
you're not
by
just a
that
hot
point he
guy.
wasn't disarmed by the words. I think he was still annoyed by the words. It was what was keeping him
Mm,
going was the looks until they get into the house. And then he
gotcha.
starts getting complimented for things that he wouldn't normally get complimented for,
Hmm.
and that he feels actually seen. So I think
Yeah.
that is the like that's closing out the loop part for him.
Yes.
So all the banter outside is really just for us to like Frank
Mm,
in the creator's eyes.
okay.
He is still just going off of I like the way this guy looks, and then when they get
Mm,
inside, and again, I'm sure some stuff was said outside that I even missed, but
hmm.
it's more the subtle ways that Frank is layering in. Like when you say I see you, like I see
Yeah.
that you are another person who is gay, and
Hmm.
like we could have a relationship, and that for
Yeah.
Frank, he's not sure yet until the piano.
Hmm.
Frank is still kind of like, I'm gonna take what I can get out of this situation until the piano scene.
Yeah, because for sure, like that was the home run. Like, yeah, no, for sure, this is he's gay kind of deal
Mm-hmm.
based on like this. It confirmed the theory and all that kind of stuff. You're probably right. And like before he got there, he was just like in the ballpark of trying to find something within the house that would like out him, in from that very, very complex kind of understanding, in that way of like, I see you deeper and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? Because
Well, I think the Linda Ronstadt thing is supposed to be the obvious one
100%.
because I always
Yes.
knew it as "Are you a friend of Dorothy?" Like if you
Mhm.
liked Judy Garland or whatever, and so I learned this week that Linda Ronstadt was another coded way of saying that. Like if you're a fan of Linda Ronstadt, which is
Yep.
why it's important that he goes, "This is you," and that he
Yes.
gets no pushback when he says, "This is you,"
Hmm.
and then obviously he does the "Who's the girl you're singing about?" I think by that point he already knows that there is no girl, but he needs him to say it, and he's giving him all these opportunities to either shut his theory down or confirm it. And
Yeah.
I really liked all of that process.
Yeah, because it was every part of it was so gentle to me and so beautiful. This is what I love. Is just like, obviously Frank knows by that point, and you can see how Bill is, he had never come out before, right? This is just something that was deep within him, and he guarded for a very, very, very long time. And the fact that it came out now, and in the way that Frank saw so many parts of him that no one had ever seen before, and just
or
got
at least
to
never
there.
commented on in a positive way.
Right. Not that we know of or whatever it might be, but either way, it's just like every part of that was really, really spot on, because oh God, I could watch that so many times, and I will again, because I love this episode. It's such a beautiful thing. And even when they're like getting to the lovemaking part where he's like, go take a shower, and then like it's the most gentle walkthrough of that kind of situation that I could have even thought of, like, ever. It's just like, let's take like everything about it. It was just absolutely beautiful. And then cut to the fight. And then I'm like, that's Bill and Frank.
Yeah. Well, no,
From
before that, I think what's important is that there's all these moments of Frank trying to enforce like cleanliness. This isn't my original thought. I saw it on one, like maybe New Rockstars, but once I saw it, it kind of clicked for how even their fight starts, which is when he's first in the house. You see him like wipe the dust, like, and that even Bill looks that he wiped the dust to be like, oh shit, like, oh, he's gonna judge me for that, and that like that. I mean, for obvious reasons, they should shower before they have sex, but that it's him. It doesn't go like a normal movie would go, where they would just passionately kiss and then cut to. It was, you make a point of showing that Frank is like, take a shower, please. Like, let's take a shower. And well, he already had showered by that point, but he's like, Bill, you take a shower, and then you see him kind of hold his hand through this process. It didn't just jump to it. They were trying to show how meticulous he can be and the care that he puts into things. I mean, that's obviously a line from their fight, but I like that they make a point of establishing that, so that when they're fighting about basically Frank wanting to take care of the area and not just their relationship, but basically saying like, taking care of the area is me taking care of the relationship and all that. You learn how he loves, obviously, and like I thought that was, again, very good setup and payoff in like quick periods of time. That really worked for me. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, and I thought it was very, very well done, because in that fight specifically, it's the idea of, okay, Bill is not that guy that is purely out of necessity, because look at the way he cooks, look at the way he feeds, and look at all that kind of stuff, right? He is a guy that is meticulous about his detail and likes enjoying those kind of things. It's just that he doesn't connect with the idea or the fact that like the visual aspect of things is important. He's just more about the enjoyment, or like going through it. He's struggling to understand. And in that fight, it's such a good way to just help him understand. And it was really, really nice. It was just genuine, really, 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 really nice of how that worked out. It's great.
Yeah. I don't know if he understands fully during that fight, but
well, at least he understood that it meant a lot to Frank, and that
he understood that it wasn't frivolous.
Yes.
To that point, like he's thinking like, resource management, you're wasting time, and he's like, it's part of showing how much he loves Frank that he's like, whatever, it's important to him. I don't think this is a good idea, but if it's important to him, like, why would I put my foot down any more than I already have? Because then it cut, like, part of the fight is also not just that he wants to take care of the area, but that he wants friends. Like, he wants to share this. And obviously I didn't realize we were going to get to see Tess again, but he's like, well, I've been talking to a nice woman on the radio, and so then we get to see Tess and Joel younger than, well, at least younger than we got to see Tess. and that is kind of like you see who like the doppelgangers, for less of like lack of a better term, of like obviously Tess and Frank are each other in their relationships, and then it just that interesting that we're like Bill can't even help himself. He's like cocking his gun at Joel during the meal, and like Frank is so used to this. Like, could you please not? Like, it's not even like, whoa, what are you doing? He's like, please stop that. Stop. No.
He's like, not today. We talked about this.
And
please
even
stop.
Joel, when he's like, we can help you, each didn't take that gun out of my face. Like, everyone's kind of just like, yeah, I get it, but stop what you're doing. But that Bill is kind of like, I see you, Joel. Like, you are obviously Tess's protector the way I've become Frank's protector. They both kind of have insight into each other and let each other know, like, I get what's going on here, and we can help each other.
And I really like that approach. It's like, he sees what he's not willing to say about Tess, and then Joel is able to see the relationship that they have, where he thought he was just very good at hiding it. I'm like, you're not good at hiding this. You're not good at it. But it was a lovely kind of situation where they were just like purely out of necessity, like figuring that kind of stuff out, how to trade, how to establish that relationship, professionally for Bill, at least, all that kind of stuff. And I really like the fact that it was Frank that created that whole like, we use the 80s for this music and this and all this kind of stuff. Very cool stuff in that. A lot of groundwork being like explaining a lot of the early stuff in the episode 1,
and
which
that
I really
like
enjoyed.
what Joel did for them by like pointing out, like, look, your fences aren't going to last as is. Like, we have materials that can help you with your fences. We can make this last longer than it will if you just stick to yourself. It is another part of this episode, right? Like, these connections that you make that on the surface make it feel like, well, I'm now leaving myself out in the open to get struck down, but they obviously are making your life better with these connections.
Because like, and I'm not going to get there yet, but like Bill says something that just breaks my heart. It's like later on in the episode that it brings that all home. So it's important to know that after this dinner party and all this kind of stuff, like Joel and Tess, they go there back to the QZ and all that kind of stuff. And well, like just like Joel said, like it's not just walkers or the infected that he's got to be worried about. It's the Raiders now, and lo and behold, Raiders. And this is where I'm like interested on your take about why he just stood in the middle of the street with the marksman rifle and a white shirt. Like, it was stupid tactically.
The white shirt, I don't think he can help. I think that was,
well, no, he didn't help that, but not having the situational awareness to be like, I'm going to get behind some cover because I'm wearing white.
This is the part that makes the whole "this is a love story and that's not a good thing" makes sense in this episode, which is there's a reason the way that Frank was sleeping and he's woken up not by like Bill getting out of bed or anything. That there's reason to believe that Bill doesn't do much sleeping and is constantly watching over this new thing that he's found, and that he would just jump out there and be like, I'm taking these people down. Like, he's not thinking about himself in that moment. He's only thinking, I need to be the shield for Frank. This is what I'm protecting. Like, the whole point of this is to protect Frank. So while I was worried for Bill in the moment, I completely understood that it was like, this was another case of love making him do something that could get him killed, and something that's reckless. And I don't think that ultimately this episode was about, it's a bad thing that this was a love story. I think this was obviously showing you that actually this enriched both of their lives, so it was a good thing they had each other. But it still was exploring love and some of the dangerous things that happened. But I think in this episode, as I said, I think they came down on the side of like, for these two men, it was better that they found each other and had love.
100%. Yeah.
They didn't make each other worse. They didn't bring out the worst in each other. They made each other better and gave each other something to wake up to in such terrible times.
Yeah, love, companionship. It was, that they had a life together of whatever normalcy they could, right?
Yeah, and I think this was more like Bill is so hyper aware that this is something that can happen that he probably is up anyway and looking for this to happen, and he just went outside in what he was wearing to bed. And it's actually when he turns to look at Frank that he gets hit. He was fine, even though he's doing this for Frank. Still, the physical presence of Frank is kind of what slows him down in this moment. And again, I know that this is just really grasping at straws at the whole. This is a love story, but I think it is isolated to just the fact that he got shot. But even then, their love. I'm not saying this is like whatever. I think this was Fast and Furious 6, where like Letty's love just brought
her memory
back to life. But like it was his love that made sure that he didn't just go like, well, I got to get out of here, and he stayed with Bill, and he obviously the bullet went right through, but he was there to help him through that situation. So even though there was a brief moment of like, oh right, like this wouldn't have happened to him if he was in a relationship with Frank, it's still ultimately, but what would his life been? What would his life been if he didn't have Frank there to be with? So obviously that outweighs what happened to him in that moment.
Right. So pure defender mode and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Cool.
What were you thinking?
No, I'm just like, I was just thinking, was it a tactical error? Was he just like distracted by Frank? Because that was what I pieced together. I'm like, he didn't get hit until Frank showed up.
Yeah.
So was it like, no, he's a good enough shot to be able to stand in the middle of the street and confident enough to be able to like take out everyone that is a threat at that point in time. But just the Frank thing. But like, I know like the fact that he was already out of bed fighting the fight without Frank at all was just the idea of like, no, you need to stay here. And if you were to come out with me, then you would have gotten yourself hurt or killed or something like that. I get all that, but it's just the idea of like, it's it's standing in the middle of the street thing that was just like, yeah, was it that much out of love that it just threw off his critical thinking skills to, all that kind of stuff.
I still think tactically it's better to draw fire away from the house where the person you're trying to protect is sleeping.
Right. I mean, sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But I mean, it's not like they were firing at the house wildly, like a drive-by.
Because he was out in the middle and they were shooting at what they were shooting at.
Fair. Valid.
It seems like you're committed to this being a bad idea, which is fine. But I do think that, as I always say, do you want answers or do you want to be better? Right? Like, I think realistically, his thing is, I am protecting Frank. So it doesn't matter if they're shooting at me. It's actually better because it's not like in the movies where they're shooting at the house and trying to get him, and you look over thinking like, oh, we made it, and Frank is caught astray. It's, I'm out here, come get me, and I'll pick you off while we do this.
Yeah. But either way, this is where the part hits home. This is where we get really taken for a ride because, well, flash forward 10 years and then boom, it's not Bill that's in health issues, it's Frank.
Yeah, Frank is the one in the wheelchair, which
he's in the wheelchair. Yeah, he's it totally misled me there, and I was just like, I thought they were going to go in a different direction where Frank was going to have to take care of him, but nope, they went back to. I was like, oh,
I mean, I guess that makes sense since they were always like, no, Bill is the protector.
Yeah.
So this was always going to be designed for him to be the protector.
But we see him fast forward, and he's terminal. Like, don't know what it is. He says like they didn't have a cure for it 10 years ago, or when we had a hospital MRI or whatever. Yeah. So don't exactly know what he's talking about, but we know it's terminal.
He's the creators said they didn't want to commit, but in their heads it's like MS or something comparable.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. It seems neurodegenerative to me. Yeah, and I'm just like, not going to start diagnosing stuff because I'm not about doing that. But like, I'm glad the show made it non-committal. It was just the only thing that mattered was that he was terminal and couldn't take care of himself.
Yeah, that's important. It
Yeah.
doesn't really, for the purposes of this story, it doesn't matter what he has. It's just that you understand that he's made the decision based on however period of time in the last 10 years that this is his last day alive. Again, there's the details of seeing that he's like constantly trying to paint, and it's like he's trying to paint Bill, but he just can never complete the painting without it coming apart. He's painted Joel even. It's just really nice. But the other big thing is you look around and the houses don't look good anymore. The house doesn't look great either. And so he can't do the one thing he does to show that he cares anymore. I guess even in this case, the two things, the painting he can't really complete, and he can't do the cleaning anymore. And so I think he's like, all right, I'm calling it.
Yeah, because he's seeing the visual impact of it, and he just doesn't want to see it all go. And I get why he's saying that. It's just the reality is there's no better day at that point where he's at in his
for him,
disease.
No. And
for his disease. Yeah.
And I think other people have commented on this too, but I was struck with like, like this, it would have been one thing if it was like one of them is dying because of the New World Order, but it was just like, no, this is just what would have happened in real, like without a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
And it's worse because there's no one actually to help him. Like, as he says, like there's no like traveling doctor with an MRI machine. Like, it's just like, even like, what am I like? I'm done. This is it. And that is kind of a force that affects or has an impact on his decision making. But it really is just like, no, it's not because like a raider shot them. No, it's not because one of them got bit. It's like, just this was always going to happen. And at least they have each other. And they, as he said, well, I had bad days with you, but like
there are more good days.
Like, this was great.
Yeah. Everything he said, everything he did to convince Bill that this was the right decision for him, or at least convince Bill that was his decision to make and all that, whether or not he agreed with it. Everything about that broke my heart. It was just the idea of like, I don't know if this is where he says it or if he says it at dinner, but the line of dialogue I was referencing earlier was like, when Bill says to Frank, it's like, I was never afraid before I met you.
Oh, this is when they were doing strawberries. So this happened.
That was a strawberry thing. Right. But that was, I'm like, holy, what a line. That says so much with so few words.
I think that's part of the whole, this is a love story. And just that the negative aspects of falling in love, which is this guy who probably would have been
completely okay.
He was happy being able to just live by himself.
Yep.
Now has a taste of what it's like to actually connect with someone and have a proper relationship. And he's afraid he's going to lose it.
Yeah.
And that sucks for him. But obviously when it comes down to it, he's like, yeah, I would rather have this than nothing.
Yeah. And that is without a doubt, I feel one of the biggest fears when you do have that is losing it. And you know what I mean? It's just like that in him recognizing in that strawberry moment is just like, damn, like, I was never afraid to lose you or die before you or whatever his version of what that meant was, but he was never afraid until he met Frank. And I thought that was just such a bone-chillingly beautiful piece of dialogue that he delivered.
Because I think it means a lot. Like he always knew that he could get shit done, but now it's like, well, I'm thinking for two people now. It's not just me. So like that scares me. And there is the whole, I'm scared I'm gonna lose you. Like I'm afraid to die now because I'll be missing time with you. Again, like set up and pay off of like setting up that like he knows like, I'm older than you, Frank, so I'm gonna go before you and I'm gonna miss out on having time with you. So then the decision he makes at the end makes sense that he's like, this is horrible. I don't want you to die, but also like we're not gonna have time without each other now.
Yeah. And I love how he even references that. I forgot what the words he chooses are, but like obviously we're getting to the part where his this Bill, it's what we think is Frank's final day. He's getting all the stuff done he wants. He's going to the salon. He's getting his favorite meal cooked.
They got married.
They got married. Huge thing there. And like he basically had his perfect day. And what I thought was just absolutely beautiful was he cooks the exact same meal the first time they met and does the exact same wine pairing and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought that was the most beautiful thing. It's like the first time I met you and the last time we found out in a little bit that it's just, oh, what a love.
The last meal. This is the first meal we had together. This is the last meal we're having together.
Yeah. What a painfully toxically romantic thing. God damn it. Good on you, Bill.
I would say I don't see it as toxic in this reality of it's zombie apocalypse. So like,
of course,
it's different if it was like, you you could have gone to a hospital or something like that. Like that, then it becomes because I've been thinking about your use of toxic in this and from last episode even, and I don't know that I think that's what they're going for, of showing toxicity like as like the final thought. Like I'm sure there can be flashes of it, but I do feel like it's more like these relationships are strong relationships.
Yes.
And I don't think that they're going for like, look at the toxicity that led to whatever the outcome is of this first season or whatever the episode might be. I think that it's just showing you that it's not all, rainbows and kisses. There's a darker side to it, but ultimately the connection is an important one. And of course, you would rather have that than not.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess my use of the word toxic is just jumping the gun for what I know does happen later on, where I'm like, oh yeah, this can only be described as toxic and all that kind of stuff, which I'm definitely jumping the gun. You're right to call me out for that. But it's the idea of like right now, because you're right, in regards to whether or not the show creators successfully explored the destructive nature of love in this. I'm like, yeah, but you're destroying a part of a guy that was like, I want to be alone my whole life and have no joy in reaching out to people. So if you're going to destroy a loner's perspective of needing other people, I think that's a good thing. You know what I mean? That's the only thing that really does get destroyed, because no part of Frank gets destroyed. Frank's being is so well maintained through like the whole thing. Bill
you see him and he's like, oh well, everyone I was with died, and so you're seeing him actually be pieced back together. So this relationship pieces him back together. Like, whereas obviously, Bill has a change of perspective. It's Frank being able to get what he needs out of life again, and not in like a parasitical way. It's more just like, like this. Frank thrives when he has people to interact with, and he's actually found someone that means, I mean, who knows what his relationships were like before this, but like, at least for this period of time, this is the most meaningful relationship he's going to have.
Yep, absolutely. And like, it's sure there's, I mean, you could analyze it which way, but this episode for the most part was just absolutely beautiful. Now we get to the part where, of course, he's got to crush up all the pills and put it in the wine, mix it for him and all that kind of stuff. Well, in the meantime, he's already done that. So
so he put it in the bottle already. Like with the bottles they were drinking from already had it in there, and he said it was enough to kill a horse. The putting it in the glass was just for show, realistically.
And I'm just like, yikes! You just really didn't want to let him enjoy that last glass of wine, eh? Because that must have tasted
he was
crap.
Done.
No, I'm joking. That was just silly.
And then I go. Again, another way that they spoke to each other without words, because you can see Frank's I know the actor's name isn't Frank, but the character Frank reacting to like, you're chugging it too. Fuck. Okay. I see what you did there. All right. Then he says what he says, but it is, he registers it before that. Like, he's like, as soon as he sees the chugging, he's like, wow, okay, you did it. Like, you put it in the bottle, didn't you?
Yep, he sees it, and I'm like, the moment he did that, I'm like, oh crap, this is a suicide thing.
Well, this is I thought you were gonna say this part when he's like, "This isn't a
Mhm.
suicide at the end of the play," which
Right.
I do know is a line from the play
Mhm.
Boys in the Band,
Yep.
which was a Netflix movie, which I like, but maybe people don't like it. But I liked that
Mhm.
Netflix movie. It was a pretty good movie. Um, I think I struggled with this because there's like, yeah, this shows you that gay love doesn't have to be doomed. I'm like, I mean, they were doomed. Like everyone is doomed in this reality. So I
Yeah.
guess it's equal opportunity, but it was just like
I
at
mean,
least they got to go out on their own terms. This, which is
yeah.
more Bill's point, which is this isn't us
Mhm.
killing ourselves to get away from something. This is us being like, you know what? We had a good time. We're
Yeah, we had
done.
a good ride.
And
Like,
this is it.
what's how it's like Frank's realization of like, hey, there's no MRI guy floating around gonna like help me out here. It's Bill's recognition to be like, listen, you were the one guy that got me to open up. Like, you think that's gonna happen again at my age? And like just the fact that I'm gonna have to take care of myself and all this
Well,
kind of
he said
stuff.
like,
And
yeah, you're my
yeah,
purpose. Like
yeah,
this is it for
he
me.
fulfilled his
You're it
purpose,
for me.
yeah, exactly. He did all those kind of things, but it's his recognition of his situation as well, being
Mhm.
like, yeah, I if the best thing about my life is leaving and I'm not going to have anything better to go to, it's just like he's got to take consider that option as well, because he's
Yeah,
just
like I
okayed
can't
it
go
for
back to
Frank.
being Bill before Frank. I can't
Yeah,
like that's not an option for me. You've
yeah,
done so much for me that like this is the end for me as well.
yeah.
If you're done as
If
well.
yeah, if you're tapping out, so am I. Like it, and I'm just like, in the fact that he's like, it's not that suicide at the end of the play and all that kind of stuff. It's not the exact same thing. I'm like, yeah, no, he's right. It's not the exact same thing. This is not a doomed love. This was a love that ran its exact course, and they just it's a doomed situation. Like
Well, I guess
that's the reality of
I
it.
guess more importantly, it's
Mhm.
not like they their love ended or was forced to end because of societal norms. It was more
Right.
like the natural conclusion of their love was this moment.
Yeah.
This was they were always not going to want to be in the world without each other.
Yeah, a full and happy life together. Like
Yeah.
that's the end of the road. And I'm like, yep, yep,
Yeah, they got
that makes a
20
lot of
years
sense.
together.
Yeah, and the idea of two, like they both passed away in each other's arms, like in that bed, right?
Well, I
And
don't
I'm
know.
just
We
like,
didn't see it, but I don't know.
well, we didn't see that, but that's what we assume would happen based on what Frank said
Frank asked
earlier
for
in the
you to
day.
hold me. So, yeah,
They're probably
we
going to
can
hold each
assume. I'm
other.
glad they didn't show as well because
That
that's
would have
not the
been
point.
so rough. And
Yeah,
yeah,
because
you're
their
right.
death
That would
isn't
have
the
been the
point.
thing.
The point is
Yes,
that they got to live life the way they wanted to
they close the chapter
together. Yeah.
together. Yeah, that was the point. You're absolutely right. And then of course we flash forward a few weeks or something like that, or whatever
Yeah,
time that Joel.
I don't know if they specify, but obviously it's not like the day of or
Right.
the next day.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be that like, well, I think that the dialogue explains this as well, but when they heard the Depeche Mode song, the 80s song at the end of the first episode, that was
Mhm.
because the reset hadn't happened for the 3 weeks or whatever.
Yep.
So obviously it's weeks after the fact, as you mentioned
Mhm.
first, that the playlist was just starting over again because no one was there to intervene.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, we flash forward. Is that all you wanted to say about Bill and Frank?
I mean, I could go on and on about how beautiful that whole love story is, but that's like, it's nothing but praise coming out of me, which
Yeah.
is nothing really productive to critically say. But oh god, that love story, oh, just such a self-contained love story, and oh god, one of the best love stories I've seen in such a long time. So beautiful.
So yeah, we flash forward and it's Ellie and
Mhm.
Joel showing up at the gate. Um, Obviously, as the audience, we already know they're there, but if you
Mhm.
hadn't, for some reason, you jumped in right in there, I think there's enough signs to be like, whoever they're there to see
Yeah,
is
if you,
not there.
if you
They haven't been there for a while.
yeah, if you tuned out, it's nope, they're
Well, I
gone.
guess what I'm trying to do
Yeah.
is complement the visual storytelling, which
Right,
is
right,
that
right.
like
Yes.
you, for whatever reason, if you didn't know what happened in the scene before, it would be
Mhm.
very easy to come to the conclusion that someone
Something's wrong.
who they went to go see not only isn't there, but has not been there for a while.
Yep. And wasn't too concerned with the way they left things. So
Yeah.
that says a lot. The eeriness about the house and all that kind of stuff. And
right, that the air flows and closes doors and opens doors. Yeah, all of
that. It was there was the way they shot it, like everything about that scene. There was such an air of creepiness to it. I felt like it felt icky, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So very happy that the door wasn't open, that the you know, the area is not disturbed and all that kind of stuff, and that they run ahead and do the logical thing. It's like, yeah, let's and there's small little touches here where it's like, oh, your car battery is like the sulfur is like removed from it, so it like maintains and doesn't go bad and all that kind of stuff.
Well, before that, we see that Ellie sees the letter from
the suicide note,
from Bill to Joel.
From Bill, yep.
Which is I mean, it says to whomever. So Ellie finally said, I guess I volunteered as whomever, but it was obviously for Joel. And you realize like he's kind of doubling down on what they were talking about at the table that time, which was like, we're protectors. You know that, I know that. God help anyone that tries to get in the way of us trying to protect who we want to protect. Unfortunately, Bill is a bit off on this one because he's like, look, I left you all the ammo, like all the weapons you need to protect Tess. And I really like the performance of Bella Ramsey when she gets to the protect Tess and like, she kind of chokes up and stops before she says it. And then obviously Pedro Pascal won't be outdone, and before they do the like insert shot of him reading it, just the way he takes, you know, like he knows what it says, obviously. Like we know what it says, but he definitely knows what it says. I thought that was really good.
Oh god, yeah, it was so many elements of that was beautiful.
As we said, like this is from beyond the grave, Bill being like, don't fuck around. Like he doesn't know that it's Ellie, but he's like, you're a protector, don't fuck around. Like you need to protect Ellie. Like this is no longer like a maybe yes, maybe no situation. Like just do it. This is what we do. That's what we're here for.
That's our purpose.
Get it done.
Live up to it, kind of deal, and stop just protecting yourself.
Exactly. You know, there's no room for you to only protect yourself. He learned that, obviously. We watched him learn that, obviously not in real time, but in real time of the show's length. We watched Bill learn that, and so he's able to impart that to Joel.
Because it's like what he's not saying in that is like protecting other people and letting them in will save your humanity and all that kind of stuff, right? Because that's exactly what Frank did for Bill. He introduced so much to him, love, like just simple joys, like the fact is like, this is a strawberry. It's like, I traded a gun for it. You traded a gun for seeds? And it's like, yeah, but look how happy it made you, kind of deal, right?
Or even the detail that like that was the first time Bill was able to have sex with who we would want to have sex with and not pretend with a woman. Like, I know he said I did it once with a female, but like assuming he was pretending to like that or forcing himself to do that so that he could fit in.
And just so like, there's society won't question how we can hide all those layers of it. 100% makes sense.
Just adding to what you're saying, that yes, Frank gave him so much. Bill was the protector, but like that, as I said, it was not a parasitic
no,
relationship.
not at all.
It was they were giving each other what both of them needed.
Absolutely. They and it was just the idea of like they really were, and if we're going to talk about the destructive nature of relationships and love and all that kind of stuff, or the negative side of it, it's just like, this is what happens when two incomplete people complete each other. There's so much codependency that some dark stuff can really, really happen, right? That's ultimately the message behind a very beautiful love story that didn't seem to go that direction, really. It's just like, hey, from the setting of fungal infection killing everything and everyone, and we're getting older, like, really, what's the better option here? Like,
I don't know if they were I don't think Frank was incomplete. Like as I said he was pieced back together, but that was because he was broken by the people he was with dying. But that's not like a long-standing deficit he had in his life. And I think that for Bill, he thought his life was complete. Like again, like that we can make our own judgments on
Sure.
but that wasn't a deficit he felt he had. What the beauty of this story is that he learned that like this is way better. That it wasn't that he was incomplete, it was just that he was actually able to grow, and both of them were able to flourish with each other.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, there's definitely a codependent relationship. But I mean, like, hey, what relationship wouldn't be in a post-apocalyptic world?
Yeah, I guess I disagree that it was codependent, but sure.
Yeah, yeah. But either way, it doesn't really matter. It's just I agree that this episode's exploration of love was more beautiful than it was negative or destructive or anything like that. This was genuinely such a beautiful episode of television, an amazing story, and just woven in so successfully into the main story, right? This is one of the biggest things about this was like, wait, we're looking at side quest territory right now, which usually don't care about. Like, why are we derailing from the main quest? But we got like they successfully made us care about two characters that are so different from the game in regards to the fact that they hated each other, like they're like Frank's dead, he hung himself and all that kind of stuff, and then Bill's just like whatever, he acts like he doesn't care, right? There's none of that here. Like they fully care about each other, and there's no even that toughness, and just the idea of making the side quest side characters so pivotal into this was such a great departure away from the game. Because if the game Bill showed up, I'd be like, yikes, I don't care, because it would have been the personality associated with that politics that we would have found. And that would have been like, oh, this is just hard to watch. You know what I mean? It's like, I love myself some Nick Offerman, but don't want to see that no. In from anyone portraying it. Yeah, realistically. It's so I like when they deviate from source material in a very, very successful and upgrading way. And they did it in this episode. What a banger of an episode.
Yeah, I think they did well here. So basically, after reading that, I can't remember exactly what happens, but essentially Joel kicks into, look, you're coming with me. I'm going to get you to whatever this lab is.
Yep.
Here are the rules. And I like that he asks her to repeat them, and she doesn't repeat them. She just says what you say goes, but she didn't actually repeat anything. She didn't even use the same language he used. So it was just like, yeah, she'll be fine. She's gonna stick up for herself.
Yep. It was a good moment. Yeah, and they get geared up. They drive off
out in the car, and I like that she's like, this is like a spaceship, because obviously she had the moment of seeing the plane earlier, and it was completely undercut by by seeing the dead people, and it sucked. Whereas this, she at least gets to be like, have a version of being safe and enjoy something she never got to enjoy before.
And the idea of like just the fact that he's full on leaning into the protector role is like, put on your seatbelt kind of thing. Like just that simple thing is like, yep, you're opening up, you're getting into dad mode there, bud. Let's see how that opens up next episode. Good times.
Like he is in dad mode, but I feel like he was always in dad mode because of the running gag of her being like, "There's nothing dangerous in there, is there?" And he's like, "Only you."
Just you. Yeah, he likes that dad joke for sure. And yeah, I mean, yeah, but he's fully embraced it now. Tess and Bill.
The note from Bill has made him be like, all right.
Yeah, Tess and Bill have gotten through to him to be like, you gotta do this, because the Fireflies, that plan went to shit. Now we got this running car. Let's go.
Excellent. All right. Well, that was episode 3. Long time. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week for more coverage of The Last of Us. We are on the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Contra Zoom Pod, So please go to thatshelf.com. You'll find those shows, our show, more shows. And if you want to hear older episodes of our show, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter and Instagram are at tdfspoiled. And you know what? We're on all of the podcasts. Just
all of them.
Yeah. So go ahead,
Actually,
rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends. And if we're not on the one that you need us to be on, then get in touch with us with the ways I told you earlier.
Yeah, and I dare you to find it. I dare you.
You dare.
I dare the listener to find a podcast thing that we're not on. Yeah. I dare you.
And if you find it, your prize will be that we'll get on there eventually.
I will wear a weird hat to the next recording.
Okay.
That'll make my voice really pop.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.